Welcome back to another video. This is the second video in a series that I'm planning on doing on the Kickstarter or the game system Broadside Empires of Steel. I've tried my best to figure out how am I going to do this. How am I going to do this where I can convey to you guys and you people uh, how amazing this game is, also how amazing the models are. I mean, everyone has their favorite systems that they play with, be it 40K or Lord of the Rings, the strategy battle game. People love Black Powder, they love bolt action, um, and I love all those things too. But what I really love is I love naval warfare, and the part about the period of naval warfare I like the most is the Age of the Dreadnought. So I'm talking about between, let's say, 1889 or 1899 to about 1919. And simply because you get to use ships that look somewhat like World War II battleships, or battleships in general, and you don't have any of that messing around with torpedo bombers, dive bombers, those types of things. Now, although I really do like those games, there's several systems out there. I could think of Victory at Sea as one of the ones that I'm thinking about at the moment. Although I do love those games, and you can play those games, you can play the scenarios like the Graf Spee versus the Exeter and the Achilles and the Ajax, and those are ship-on-ship actions. Um, the point of collecting the models and stuff is you want to have aircraft carriers and you want to have the aircraft. But as soon as aircraft carriers and aircraft are involved, I find you can't really fight some of the major set piece battles like Midway. You can't fight. That's more of an aircraft game, and at that point, you lose the naval aspect of it. Sure, you can move the carriers around, you can launch flights and stuff, and but really the naval aspect of the game is over, and the aerial combat part of the game has begun. So, for instance, just replace the aircraft carrier with a truck on the Eastern Front, and have Russian bombers bomb moving trucks, and the trucks trying to get out of the way. I mean, you're talking about kind of the same thing. It's more about the aircraft than the ships. And I love ships. I love collecting them. I love painting them. I think you've seen them here on the channel. I'm all about them. I love other things too, but I mean, ships, I really love ships. And the Age of the Dreadnought is my favorite period because I have all of the things I love about naval warfare and none of that extra stuff I have to think about. Um, my favorite time period is World War One. And when I seen this Kickstarter or this game system, and that they had a Kickstarter, I had to be part of it. I had to get into it. But me being me, I'm oblivious. I missed it, and my wife got me this system. She contacted the creators, and they sent they sent us over the game. We paid for it obviously, but they sent us over the game and all the files. And I'm not a 3D printer. I have a 3D printer, but I'm not a 3D printer per se. I have it. I can kind of use it, but I will still buy a boxed set of figures before I'll 3D print them for myself, because I'm like everybody else. I'm a hobbyist. I'm kind of a perfectionist when it comes to the hobby, and there's a lot of things that can go wrong with 3D printing. And you can go on websites like Cults 3D or Thingiverse and find prints of ships, and I have done that. But when I've gone to print them out, there's always something wrong. Always something wrong. So normally when I see 3D printed files, I kind of shy away from actually printing them. But this game has or comes with its own set of 3D printed figures, ships, which you'll see a selection out here in front of you. And now I have printed off one of every major ship for the Jutland campaign in 1916, and a couple of the ships from the Mediterranean. But what you see in front of you here, all these ships, this is a fraction of what comes in this game. And what comes for, we paid $104 Canadian. It was $111 Australian. I'm not sure what that would equate to in British pounds or in US dollars, but $104 Canadian this cost me. What you see out in front of you here printed, now I'll get into the ships in detail in a minute, but what you see out here printed in front of you is over $1,400 if I was to buy each one of these ships from GHQ. Now, I don't want to argue with anyone or suggest even that GHQ is inferior to this, because that'd be lying to you. But I think GHQ miniatures are the pinnacle of naval miniatures. And I have bought many, many of them. And although I love them, they're very expensive. And I don't like the metal masts and the gun turrets because once they bend, they're really hard to get back straight. I mean, I've seen people use brass rod to replace the barrels, and oh my goodness, who has time for that? I mean, great for you if you do, but that's not for me. But if I was to buy all these miniatures laid out here in front of you, it would be over $1,000, $1,400 Canadian to buy all these ships from GHQ. I printed all these out in 4 days. Now I work too full time, so I printed these out in 4 days, and all it cost me was half a bottle of resin, plus the electricity, I guess. But half a bottle of resin, and that bottle of resin cost me $40 Canadian. So we're talking $20. I printed this all out. What you see in front of you. So for the $111 investment, or sorry, the $104 investment to this great company, and $20 in resin, look what I got. This is 3 months painting for me. I'll probably do a little faster than that, but it's quite a lot. Now, before we get down into the actual models themselves, it's important to remember that these are 3D STL files. So there is a fantastic amount of detail in these files, but these I don't think are meant to be equivalent to something like GHQ in its detail of the decks and the decking and all that kind of stuff, because it still has to print. And one of the things I find when you find 3D print files online is the sculptor, or the 3D sculptor, has gone to he's made an amazing model. It's fantastic. It is brilliant. But do they print them out under various conditions with various machines to make sure that the print comes out? Because I have personally paid money for STL files, and I've got some for free, of amazing models, and I have tried to print them 100 times and they will not come out. And I've tried all kinds of settings, to the point where I just say forget it. Just forget it. So for instance, GW has nothing to fear from me when it comes to 3D printing their 28mm figures, because nothing looks like the real thing. I just cannot get it to print like the real thing. But when it comes to these ships here, there is just enough detail for you to recognize the ship instantly, but not enough detail where the 3D print is going to fail on you multiple times. Now, I have had failed prints with this. I wouldn't lie to you. I have had failed prints, but it didn't take me long to figure out what was the matter and how to get across and overcome those issues and to get these all printed. Now, once I figured out those issues, I just started steamrolling through these ships, just going crazy. And what you see here is the British and Germans from the original Kickstarter, the Empires of Steel Kickstarter, with a couple of Mediterranean ships just put in there because the Duke of Edinburgh and stuff were in the Three Crowns Kickstarter. But we're missing the Americans, we're missing the Italians, the Austrians, the Germans from the second Kickstarter. We're missing half or more of the actual ships. Look at this colossal collection. This is insane. Now we're going to break down the ships one at a time, get a closer look. I hope you're with me still with this. I mean, go check it out. I'm fairly passionate when it comes to things that I like, and this is something that I like. I knew it from the second I seen it. I knew it from the second I watched the videos. I started printing the files, and this is me now for a couple of weeks at least. I am going to do other things. Obviously, I have a room full of stuff over here, but check this game out. Just give it a whirl. There's really two parts to these series of videos. There's going to be the model part, which we're going to do first, and then there's going to be the game part, which we'll do second. Because you don't need the STL files. If you already have ships printed, you don't need any of these files for this game. The game doesn't require you to have these ships, have ships of your own. So they're really, although they're the same part of the same product line, they're kind of separate from each other. So I will do that. I will separate the models from the game, and then what I will do is I'll combine both components. We'll play a battle on camera, and we'll see how it goes. So we're just going to move this aside here so we can focus on the models. And let's get down to it. So what I've done is I've broken them down into destroyers, cruisers, armored cruisers, dreadnoughts, battle cruisers, Oh, we'll look at them one at a time. So I'm just going to pause the video and hopefully I can set my camera up where we can get a better look. One sec. Okay, I've adjusted my camera. I've gone down as far as I can to get a good look of these ships. Now this white booklet is here simply because when I take it away, the lighting on my mat makes everything turn like a greenish color. So if I bring it back, I'm not sure how to correct that right now. I'm not a professional. So let's just go with what we have. In front of us, we have the destroyers. Now these are the destroyers from both Kickstarters. I believe. I may not have everything. I think I've printed off everything, but who knows. But this gives you a good idea what you get. So these are the destroyers. Now if you look at my finger, I mean, look at my hand here. They're fairly small. I wrote on the bottom of them what they are. This is the Scott type destroyer, and I've written them on the bottoms of all of the vehicles. But if we just take a look here, and I can maybe get my my paintbrush in here, I mean, if we look at this destroyer, it's pretty small. And also you don't have to worry about the size of them and picking them up because they are designed to go on these bases that come with the game, which we'll get into later. So I intend to put these tiny destroyers here, like the V138. This is a German destroyer or torpedo boat, whatever you want to call it. I intend to put those on the bases, so I'll be touching the actual base, not the actual figure. So let's get a closer look and see what we have here. This is the British Acasta type, and I'm sorry with the close in on my fingers there. I'm going to try and do my best to, will it focus for me? This is the Acasta. I mean, you can clearly see the lifeboat and the torpedo tubes. Come on now. I mean, these are designed to print off really easy. So you can get, if you line them up on your plate like this, you can get 15 of these things in one shot. You're not going to need 15. I think you probably only need 3 at a time. But this is the Acasta type British destroyer. If we move up there, we have, what's this? This is the Beagle. This is part of the Three Crowns. So you can see they've improved since it's part of the second Kickstarter, you can clearly see the gun there. A little bit more detail on the actual destroyer than the original Acasta one. This is what? This is the Matchless. Is it? Yeah, this is the Matchless. You see, it's gone from 1 torpedo tube to 4. What do we have here? We have the Marksman. So we're getting a little bigger if you take a look at the size difference. Quite the size difference. This is the Marksman. And then we have the Scott. This looks like to me like a destroyer leader. It's almost the size of a light cruiser, but there you go. Really. And there's them together as a family. You can see the size differences in all of them. So that's the British destroyers. Now we move on to the German torpedo boats, or destroyers, however you want to call them, both the same thing. You have the V138, which is the small one here, which is a really tiny thing. Now, the torpedo tubes may not have printed 100% there, but no one's going to notice really on the gaming table. And this is the V25, the bigger one. Lots of detail on there. Really not a whole lot more you could need. So that's the destroyers. So I'm going to pause for a second and get the cruisers out. Okay, here we are. I wonder why that won't stay blue. Here we have the selection of the cruisers. We have the British up here and the Germans down here. We'll start off with the Germans. The first cruiser we have in the display is the Gazelle class. Now, when you think about the destroyers, let's take a look at the destroyer just for, there's a lot of detail on the destroyer, but it's not crazy. But when you hit to the light cruisers, I mean, this is a lot of detail. This is the Gazelle. I mean, look how nice I printed. And you can print this off once you have the file. You can print this off for every ship in the class. So that's the Gazelle. We'll look at what's this? This looks like the Königsberg. I mean, that's really nice. We have the Dresden class. After printing out so many figures, I kind of have a fair idea who is who. I just wanted to double check. This is what the Pillau. Yes, it's got the unique rear. Looks like a really launch aircraft. It's just the Pillau. And this is the Magdeburg. Now there's a hair there, but don't worry about that. Don't let that distract you. It's my cat. Strikes again. Okay. He's locked upstairs tonight, so you won't see him. Because he loves to pick these things up. But look at the detail on that. Put some paint on that. I mean, what do you want? For the price, I mean. So there's the German cruisers. We'll just move those aside, and we'll go on the British cruisers. We'll start with this small one. This, if I'm not wrong, is the Topaz light cruiser. It's got all those little guns along the side. That's the Topaz. This is what? This is the Bristol. You can see the size difference now. You're starting to creep up in size difference. This is the Bristol. A really distinctive looking ship. We have the series. Again, I'm not a professional printer, 3D printer, so if there's any errors in these, you have to forgive me. It's I'm what you would call an average Joe. This is what? This is the Caroline. Yes, Caroline. Fair bit. And this is the Caledon. I can tell this one. I live in a town called Caledon, so there you go. This is one of the more modern ones, I think. And that's the Caledon. So now we'll move on to the armored cruisers. So I'll just move them in here just to save some time. This is the Warrior, the Minotaur. We have the Duke of Edinburgh, and the Monmouth for the British side. And for the German side, we'll bring in the Rune, the Scharnhorst, and the Blücher. So these are much bigger ships, you can tell. Next to the destroyers, just for scale, you can see now we're into some serious ships. And this is where this Kickstarter comes alive, is when you get to start getting to the bigger ships. The detail just becomes so crisp. Again, I'm not the best 3D printer, but here's the Warrior. I wrote the Warrior underneath it so I would know which one it was. I mean, look at all the guns on that. I did a bad gluing job on that turret there, but you can print them off without the turrets on them for ease of painting, but I did that, and then I realized I'm going to lose all these turrets, so I just stuck them on. I'd rather struggle with painting than lose all the turrets and have to print off turrets. So, you know, you can see a little bit of error there in the 3D print there where it's a little bit of overhang, but, I mean, still I can just file that away. This is the Warrior, HMS Warrior. Bad camera work, wow. Yeah, that's terrible. We have here the Minotaur. He's got the dual front turrets. Primary turrets in front and rear. And if you print with the turrets off, you can put them in any direction you want. You can have some really cool poses. This is the Duke of Edinburgh class, of which the Black Prince is part of, which is why I really wanted this ship. But I mean, look at the detail there. Hopefully it's coming across. Beautiful. It's just, I think it's amazing. This is the ill-fated Monmouth of Craddock's command. But still, I mean, this is for a little more basic ship, but still in a game, it's cheap as chips in game terms. Now we get on to the Germans, and I really like the German ships, but we'll start off with the Rune. What a cool looking ship. That's the Rune. We have the Scharnhorst, you know, very famous ship. Admiral Spee. And there's also the Gneisenau over there. I have him printed as well. Just give them a nice paint job and you're good. And here we have the ill-fated Blücher. It's more like a battle cruiser than anything else, but it is an armored cruiser. Look at all those turrets on that. Looks like a dreadnought actually, but there you go. That is the... Let's get them in for a group shot here. Not that it really matters, but you can see the size difference in the Germans moving up. And then the British, I guess you would put them in maybe a similar order. to me, it blows my mind at actually how big the British armored cruisers are. They're huge. I don't know why I didn't recognize that from the photos and in the past, but once I printed them all out and I can tell the unique parts about each ship, they're big ships. Um, what we'll do now is we'll do the oddities. I'm going to do the British ships that they took from the dreadnoughts that they took from the other major powers that they were building them for. So that would be the Canada. So here we have the HMS Canada. This is a dreadnought. Now, because the turrets, I printed them separately, I could afford to do like a unique pose. I don't particularly like poses where all the barrels are shooting out one way, because when you're playing a game, if you're on this side and all your guns are shooting that way, but the enemy's over this way, to me it looks weird. I'd rather have them forward facing, but I do like to have ships that have some turrets doing something and others stationary. Just best of both worlds, I guess, for me. But that's the HMS Canada. It's important also to remember that these are gaming pieces. You don't, or you shouldn't really need to have anything better than this as a gaming piece. You're going to be handling these things. This is the HMS Erin. Really nice ship, really nice sculpt. Like whoever's doing these, whoever's designing these, like I think it's two fellows from Australia, but I mean these are excellent. These are excellent figures. And this is the Agincourt, one of my favorite ships, just because of all the turrets. Now, with this ship, I broke my rule and I put out most of the turrets doing something, just so that you just see how many turrets the thing had. But I mean, like, look at all the detail in there that you have to account for when you're printing. I mean, it's just enough detail to make the model interesting, and just sorry, how am I saying that? Just enough to make it interesting, and there's just less enough to make it printable. That didn't make sense, but you know what I'm talking about. English is good. I can speak it. So there's the three weirdos. Not part of any particular class, just built for the different countries. I think this was built for Brazil, then sold to Turkey, I believe, and taken. This was Erin. I think this is an Argentinian ship, maybe. And the Canada, I can't remember exactly what country ordered that, but part of the British Navy right now. Let's get on to the battle cruisers. We'll start off with the Germans. I'll bring these on one at a time because I know a lot of fans of battle cruisers. But if you're a ship nut like me, you'll notice that this is the Von der Tann. Get a little bit closer here. Well, now you're starting to get into some serious weaponry here. You have the Von der Tann with its distinctive noses. All the German battle cruisers, they kind of have, if I can just bring in the destroyer here, they kind of have this distinctive spear tip looking nose. And it continues from the destroyers all the way up to their battle cruisers. Now the dreadnoughts seem to forego that, but there you have the Von der Tann. This is the next one. This is the Mulke. I don't know, pronunciation fail. But look at all the deck detail there. I have it so that the turrets are kind of facing like it's starting to fire on Sir David Beatty. That's the Mulke. Oh god, I hate saying that word, but that's what it is. This is the Seydlitz. Beautiful ship. Beautiful model too. Man, you can also see the size as the ships are starting to require more size to carry. They're starting to get really big. And this is the my favorite ship, just to say. This is the Derflinger, which is, I say it, I don't want to say Derflinger, I just say it's the finger. It's the finger. And if you say it fast enough, it sounds like Derflinger. Now, an interesting part about this ship is, since I'm a Joe Blow, I only have gone green again. I only have the most rudimentary 3D printer around. So my print bed is only that size, my screen. So I have to part the ship in sort of like 3/4, 1/4. And that's why you'll see that nasty join there. But I will fill that in with some putty, sand it down, and paint it so it hopefully won't be that recognizable or noticeable. But if you just take a look, look at the size difference, like the length difference. There's a good ½ inch there, or quarter of an inch there. But this is the Derflinger. Also, the Lutzow is the same ship, so I do have both. I'll just bring him in just for a second. There's the Lutzow. There's Derflinger. I just put the turrets in a different position just to show the difference on the tabletop. But I mean, you could maybe sand down these joins. My God, my skills with the camera are terrible. You can sand down these joins to make them a little less noticeable. But I mean, again, when you have the STL, you can print this ship as many times as you want until you get it perfect. But I mean, look, beautiful ship, beautiful sculpt. I love it. Hopefully you agree. But there's the German battlecruisers. Now we get on to the British. We'll start off with the very first battlecruiser ever created, which is the Invincible. Admiral Hood's ill-fated battlecruiser. Now, this battlecruiser is responsible mainly for the destruction of this battlecruiser, the Lutzow. Before she sank, she damaged this ship so much that it just kept flooding and flooding until they had to scuttle it. But, so even though the ship went down, I know that she did a lot of damage. And since she's a really old battlecruiser, or the original battlecruiser, she was playing a fool's game getting involved in the gunnery battle. But, I mean, look at that. They're pretty nice to me. Nothing wrong there. I love that distinctive shape of the Invincibles. And then, I'll leave him there. If you move on, you get to the Indefatigable. So you'll see a little size difference. Let me bring him a little closer. You'll see the size difference here. I'll get them lined up a little bit. It's a little bigger. It's a little taller out of the water as well. Same gun layout, mainly. Although it's better for cross-deck fire. But that's the Indefatigable. Also ignited in the Battle of Jutland. I'm probably not doing these models justice. There's a little bit sands off that. Just sand that off there. But once you get some paint on these, you may not notice all those imperfections. But there's the Indefatigable. Next, we move on to the Lion. He's up next. Again, a big ship, a huge ship. So it's sort of broken down into sections here. So you'll see the join on Lion there. But it's in a position where you just have to fill in this and this, give it a lick of paint, and you're good. So here's Lion. Princess Royal is the same ship, so you can paint her too, or print her off as well. And then Queen Mary is almost identical. There's a slight difference in some things in the layout of the lifeboats, but other than that, it's almost identical. In fact, I can bring Princess Mary on here. Queen Mary. There's really not much difference. Like I said, the lifeboat layout is a little different, but that's about it. There you go. There's Queen Mary. That's Lion. We'll move on to Tiger next. Tiger has that distinctive. Not only are its turrets a little different, but also its layout here is different. They're foregoing this weird section here at the back that looks like a diamond, and it's a lot easier for the rear turret. Although it's not super firing, it's a lot easier for fire to come out. So I do like the design of Tiger, although the ship herself performed extremely poorly at Jutland, gunnery wise. I can't remember exactly, but it was like 0.5% hit ratio or whatever. It was abysmal. So there's Tiger. They're all very similar, so I didn't stay too long on them. And then of course you get the big cats. You get the pinnacle of the battlecruisers. You get the Renown and the Repulse. And this is a massive ship, so the join is a little rough, but I mean, the Lion is already a really big ship, and it's a ½ inch longer. But you can see here it's got just enough detail here. These are personally, I have a scale model that I built, a 1/350th scale of the Repulse, and I don't know why, but it's one of my favorite ships of all time. Didn't perform amazing, obviously, but still love it. The aesthetic of it. So there's the British battlecruisers. We'll move it aside. We're almost getting to the end. Now remember, this is only the British and German factions. This isn't even the Americans or the Italians. We're going to bring on the Lord Nelson next, the pre-dreadnought, and we'll at the same time we'll do the Deutschland. You can see the difference between the British and the German design philosophies for pre-dreadnoughts. Here's the Lord Nelson. Prints out amazing. This ship never failed when I printed it off. I love it. I have a soft spot for the pre-dreadnoughts. And then this is the Deutschland. Now that glossy bit there you see is under cured resin, which, put it back out in the sun for a little while, or just primer right over it. It should be fine. 3D printing is is rough on the supply of alcohol that you need. I don't mean like to drink. I mean to clean the mold. So there's the two pre-dreadnoughts. Just wanted to show them off because I personally love pre-dreadnoughts. I hope they do a Russo-Japanese war at some point. Love me some Borodino class. Next we move on to the quintessential looking dreadnoughts. Now this isn't HMS Dreadnought. This is, I believe this is Colossus and Hercules. Looks a lot like HMS Dreadnought, but not quite. Well, I can't get the camera to zoom in there properly. There's a lot of detail on this ship. It's also a little dusty because, it's been sitting around as an early print. But there she is, HMS Colossus. This is I think the ship class before they started making super dreadnoughts. We'll bring on the German counterpart here, and this is the SMS Nassau. Looks a lot like the Blucher. If I can just for a second indulge myself here and bring the Blucher back on wherever she went. Here she is. You can see the layouts of the guns are very similar. But this is the Nassau. Again, not a ton of detail, but just enough. And that's all you need, just enough. So there's Colossus and Nassau. We'll go to the Super Dreadnoughts. And this is the Orion. We're starting getting into that distinctive World War I looking centerline turret arrangement. The ships start to get way more distinctive now. So there's Orion, HMS Orion. We'll go with the Helgoland. Again, that distinctive German turret layout still. They're still on that layout. It's a gun. It's just a gunboat. There's just guns everywhere on this thing. But I mean, it's a beautiful model. I love it. Let's see, will they fit in there? There's that one. We'll move on to the King George V on the British side. Not the best print. A bit of a chip there in the bow, but I can just reprint this as many times as I want. Like I said, you have the file. Or is this Orion? Oh, this is another Orion. This is the King George V. What am I doing? So, that's why I printed the Orion twice, I guess, because it failed the first time a little bit. Here's the King George V. We're starting to get into the Iron Duke looking things. See it getting a little bigger again. This is the Kaiser. The Germans are still with their weird, what is that? Is that a piece of hair? Or was that a piece of resin maybe? Anyway, this is the Kaiser. And again, you can print these out as many times as you want. I'll clean this all up before painting, but nice deck layout there. Nice detail on the deck. The guns seem okay. That's the Kaiser. Starting getting a little better. These are the Iron Duke, one of my favorite ships of the whole time, the whole war. Here's the Iron Duke. Starting to get into the real ships now. The ships that would serve past the war. There's the Iron Duke. Starting to get a little bigger again. This is the Koenig. The Koenig. The Germans are now starting to do centerline turrets. So this is equal. But look at the decking and the decking detail there. That'll just dry brushing this will just be just amazing. Beautiful ship. Now we're getting on to some of the ships that would serve in World War II, and this is, although it's a Queen Elizabeth class, this is the Warspite. I just couldn't not name it the Warspite. But you have the STLs, so you can do all 5 of them. You know, the Queen Elizabeth, the Barham, the Valiant, Warspite, and Malaya. But there you go. There's a Warspite for you. I love this ship. And then we have the Germans don't really have anything to go up against the Warspite, so I'll skip a German ship and I'll go to the HMS Revenge. This is the Revenge class. Now, it's arguable which is a better class of ship, the Queen Elizabeth or the Revenge. It's probably the Queen Elizabeth because it's a bit faster, but Revenge did technically come off the line later, so it is the latest battleship. There's Revenge. Again, you can see some glossy, the resin there, but I mean, it's just to show you the ships, show you the models. You can reprint this any way you want, as many times as you want. Again, all these ships was $20 worth of resin. And then we move on to the German Pinnacle, World War I. This is the Bayern. The Bayern. A beautiful ship. Very distinctive looking turrets. Nice deck detail. The turrets remind me a lot of Bismarck and Tirpitz. They have a very unique design to them. If you put Revenge and Bayern together, you can see very similar looking ships. This is probably closer in layout to the Queen Elizabeth class, but still. That is the ships for the Jutland battle. And then they do give you, I just wanted to show you one of the neat things that they give you. And this is the Lusitania. Just as we end off this video here, we're at almost 40 minutes. Wow, I did not expect to spend 40 minutes on here. But this is the Lusitania. Again, it's a massive ship. Look at it next to the Queen Elizabeth, or even a teeny tiny destroyer. Boop, boop. So it's got a join in it that we got to look after later on. But I mean, it's in one of the scenarios. You know, sink it and escort it, I guess. But that's the Lusitania. You can use really any passenger liner. But fantastic model. It took me a few times to print off. I had a lot of issues getting the bow to print off with that point, but third time was a charm. So it came off. Oh, I just kicked myself there. So there we go. Let's zoom out here a little bit more. And that's the ships for this game. Please do yourselves a favor if you're a naval war gamer like me. Go out, check out the Broadside Empires of Steel, their Facebook page, and give it a look. Give it a look. We're going to get into the models in more detail, and we're going to get into the game system in more detail. I would like, before we go, just to show you one thing. They are designed to go on these types of bases. So this is the HMS Erin. This is the base that you'd put on the mat. If I can just grab Erin here. She goes right there like that. Imagine it's painted. If you just blue tack that onto the ship, this is how the ship goes around, and you have your fire arcs there. It shows you your fire arcs, your movement turn template, like your 45 degrees, 15 degrees templates. So they are designed to go on these kind of like neat bases. But we'll get into that in a later video. Thank you for tuning in. Sorry for the long video, and have a good day. Bye.